Buenos dias. I am honored to be sharing my work with you today and thank the conference organizers for inviting me. My talk will focus on how we can educate a next generation of problem solvers with engineering. Today, I will focus on exploring how youth can be engaged with engineering and problem solving. We spend 98% of our time interacting with the human-made or engineered world. For example, we use toothpaste, bicycles, bandages, buildings, and smartphones. But traditionally, primary and secondary education has often only included the study of the natural world through science. I decided I wanted to change this. For over 2 decades, I have been working closely with educators to engage youth in engineering. In this talk, I'll share some of what I have learned. In particular, I want to focus on how we can engage children in engineering practices that help them develop an engineering mindset. When I announced about 20 years ago that I was developing engineering activities for primary or elementary students, honestly, some people laughed at me. Perhaps this week was because they did not understand what engineering looks like with young children. Some of you may be wondering the same thing. So let me give you a glimpse. In this video, a class of 6- and 7-year-olds are working as agricultural engineers as they design a device called a hand pollinator, a tool that will pick up and drop off pollen to pollinate a model flower.
We're going to make a hand pollinator. The hand pollinator needs to go to a flower, and when it touches the pollen, pollen needs to stick to it, and then when you go to another flower, the pollen would what?
Stick to that one.
Drop off and stick there, and take more and bring it to another flower. I want you to brainstorm ideas for your design.
I have an idea. We could use this one and then just bend it. Yeah. Okay. So let's say number 3, but we'll just bend number 3. How about that? So it'll be half of my. It will look like your idea, but it will do the things that are in my idea. Mm-hmm. So it's both of ours mixed up. Yeah, but how are we gonna put the pom pom on? Pom-pom? Put it on top. Look what we've created so far. We used the foil and we used the pipe here. Yeah, so we're cutting it for us and putting the fur on the handle. Yeah.
All right, let's see if this hand pollinator works. Would you say your hand pollinator worked this time?
No.
What do you need to do?
Improve.
Good job. Here we go, testing. 1, 2, 3. Good job. 3-tap test. Okay, lift up your flower. Whoa, did it work?
Yes!
Well, congratulations. Give them a hand. We're going to make a hand.
As you can see, young children can engineer, and they should engineer. Why? Because children who engineer develop facility with engineering and problem-solving practices that prepare them for the future. I'm sure you've seen young children at play, designing and redesigning sandcastles, towers, bridges, and forts, building them and knocking them down. The more I've watched children interact with the world around them, the more I am convinced they are natural engineers. We need to nurture the passion for innovating, designing, problem solving, and engineering that young children have throughout their primary and secondary years. We also need to help children develop an accurate understanding of engineers and engineering. When I began focusing on engineering education, I scoured the educational literature for papers that would enlighten me about children's conceptions of engineers and engineering. At that time, I found there was no literature, so I needed to do my own research study. We asked more than 700 children in primary and secondary school to draw a picture of an engineer at work and describe what the engineer was doing. We learned many children think engineers are construction workers who build buildings, bridges, and roads. Note that the kids think engineers build these structures, not design them. We learned that engineers also think, or that children also think engineers are auto mechanics. They are the people you take your car to when it's broken. From a child's perspective, this makes sense. Engineering is a new word to many children. In English, the word engineer contains the word engine. Cars have engines, so engineers must fix cars. Some children think engineers are the people you call when your computer is broken. And finally, we were not surprised to learn that the youngest children think engineers drive trains. In English, the word engineer both refers to people who drive trains and people who design technologies. In other words, children don't have a very accurate or complete understanding of what engineers do. When I began, we needed to figure out what engineering education looked like with children. A few questions guided my work. By reading various literatures, working closely with teachers, and spending a lot of time observing and collecting data about engineering activities in classrooms, I have started to answer these questions and have generated some frameworks, 3 of which I will share today. First, I asked, what should children learn about engineering? If we observed the classroom, how would we know high-quality engineering teaching and learning was occurring? What would we see? To answer this, I turned to literature about what practicing engineers do. I talked to a lot of engineers, and I observed engineering in K-12 classrooms. This led to the articulation of a set of practices of engineering. That is, what kind of work and patterned behavior create new engineering knowledge and products. We identified 16 practices listed here that children should engage in. For example, engineering involves balancing criteria and constraints as you brainstorm multiple possibilities for a solution to a client's problem. We'll return to explore these practices in more depth in a couple minutes. I also asked, what does developmentally appropriate engineering look like? My team and I thought about what engineering looked like at different age and developmental levels. We continue to do so. We read research about children's development, we brainstormed with educators, and we tested ideas in classrooms. From these, we've outlined a learning trajectory for children aged 3 through 11 for some of our core ideas and practices of engineering. Here is one little piece of that table. Obviously, older children are capable of different things than younger children. Thinking about how to design age-appropriate activities is important. An explicit goal of mine has been to create resources for all students, particularly for those from groups historically underrepresented and underserved, such as girls or students from certain races and ethnicities. I asked, how can we design curricula that can include all students? I read hundreds of papers about features of science and engineering that either discouraged or appealed to people from a variety of demographic backgrounds. And I gathered information from practicing teachers about strategies that work. From this, I created a model for equity-oriented engineering learning, composed of 3 dimensions that together lead to the development of a 4th, improved student knowledge and enhanced engineering identity. This model communicates how engineering learning, knowledge and familiarity with engineering concepts, practices, and skills can be developed through more equitable approaches. Carefully designed curricula facilitate children's participation in socially engaged engineering, relevant to their lives, community, and world. Through analysis and design regarding applied problems, youth learn and use engineering knowledge as they engage in engineering practices. This participation and engagement are facilitated by asset-based pedagogies, focusing on the strengths youth bring to the engineering contexts. The model depicts the development of a positive, generative engineering identity that is built on substantive learning of engineering knowledge and classroom discourse that situates youth as competent and engaged engineers. In reality, many of the ideas in these three frameworks, the practices, the learning trajectories, and the equity-oriented design principles, are interwoven. Taken together, I think they offer a strong foundation for what engineering can and should look like with young learners. Next, we'll turn to explore some of the engineering practices in a little more depth. I mentioned before that early engagement helps students develop their facility with engineering practices. I'd like to turn to this theme now and show you what I mean. Let's start with the core practice of engineering, problem solving. Engineers solve problems using a process that can be generalized into a series of phases called the engineering design process. To help students build their problem-solving skills, my team and I at Youth Engineering Solutions developed a simplified version of the engineering design process that's appropriate for elementary age students. Ask, imagine, plan, create, and test. Youth engage in iterative cycles of this process to improve their designs. Our elementary process has only 5 phases because the primary teachers who served as consultants for the project told us we could only have 1 hand of steps, 5, or their kids would not remember it. As kids get older, they can manage more phases. Of course, engineers may use a design process with dozens or more phases. Regardless of the number of phases, the aim is to work with children to scaffold their learning through problem solving. A second core practice of engineering focuses on materials and their properties. Engineers investigate and consider materials properties. These properties affect how materials can be used and which materials are best for certain tasks or designs. Materials all have properties. An object might be fuzzy, transparent, strong, malleable, shiny, and so forth. The properties dictate how the material behaves. As engineers design solutions, thinking about which materials they use is an important step. This is knowledge that children need to develop over time through interactions with and manipulation of materials and the world around them. In the classroom, children can document what they learn. Properties charts, such as those seen here, are one way to display such information. Students brainstorm the properties of each material they may use. Naming properties of materials can help build children's vocabularies. Students should also be encouraged to consider what properties actually matter for a given design. What does a hand pollinator need to do? Is it important that it's red? Is it important that it is fluffy? After they name them, students can think about the materials and properties and select those that are most appropriate for the task at hand. 2 important engineering practices are applying knowledge of science and math to solve problems. Youth should understand their learning is interconnected. Engineering exemplifies this idea. It requires drawing upon, reinforcing, and applying science and mathematics concepts and practices. Engineers constantly use math and science to improve their designs. So engineering activities should also allow children to apply their science and math knowledge to solve a problem. We explicitly develop engineering design challenges that draw on and reinforce the science concepts kids are learning. The idea is that kids use the science they are learning in science class to solve engineering design problems. Let's look at what this looks like in classrooms. These 10-year-olds have been exploring energy and heat transfer. They have been introduced to the idea of insulators and conductors. They will apply this knowledge as they create the insulation for a solar oven. But doing this requires that they understand what the terms insulator and conductor really mean. Here we see them grapple with these words.
If we're trying to make the little pot, you can't have an insulator because that means all the heat's going to go out, and then whatever you're trying to make. The insulator makes it in. Conductors. Remember the word. No conductor. Insulator. Look, but insulator, it has the word in at the beginning. That's how you remember. Insulator. Insulate.
Here's another class. These youth are manipulating magnets. They've been challenged to design a model maglev, or magnetic levitation train. In their planning, youth can draw upon their science knowledge to inform their designs. These youth have previously learned that magnets can repel or attract each other. Now they're calling on this science knowledge to make the train float. You'll see the kids trying to figure out how to improve the maglev system they have designed.
All right, so is that connecting or repelling?
On a machine.
Check if that's repelling or connecting.
That's connecting.
Now we will test the magnetic levitation
Transportation system.
which looks like it's attracting me.
Are you sure?
But what I think is happening is this side here is like a different pole than this. So it's trying to slide over.
Okay.
And it's on this one repelling, but it's connecting on this one.
Because if you do this,
Okay, so
it's like it's not
Trying to get
staying
inside
straight.
there.
Yeah, it's trying to go like that.
So
it's
I
trying to hop
think
itself.
if we made it a little bit wider or lost some of the magnets that run through the middle, it would work better.
And when we improve.
Ready?
Yes,
We made it. We made it. We made it. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. High five to everyone. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh
Engineers think innovatively, brainstorm and analyze multiple solutions, compare the effectiveness of various designs, and make informed recommendations about open-ended problems. The problems they tackle are open-ended and often have multiple possible solutions. Youth should use their creativity and their knowledge to solve problems in innovative ways. The opportunity to design something truly unique makes engineering highly interesting and engaging for kids. Both students and teachers appreciate that multiple solutions are possible. In fact, teachers say it's a highlight of teaching engineering. Here's Julie, the teacher whose students designed the hand pollinators, talking about her experiences during this engineering challenge.
I think the variety of solutions that the kids came up with was the most exciting for me. None of the hand pollinators looked the same, not even similar. They used obviously the same materials. They're very creative, they're very different. I think the most exciting part was to watch them try it and then to see the wheels turning and to talk amongst themselves about how to improve it was priceless.
Design challenges with many different solutions foster creativity, problem solving, and innovative thinking.
I think
See an example of the range of ideas that children generate in the next video. They have challenged to design a sail that will capture the energy of the wind to move the boat. Notice how many different ideas the students have for how to solve this problem.
Let's see what happens. So what do you think? Is it moving? Yeah. Is our boat moving? No. Our boat's not moving. When you redesign this, what do you need to change about this sail?
Like, I need to make it a little bit stiffer.
Needs to be stiffer. So think about what you could do to make it stiffer with the materials that we have.
That looks goofy.
I don't know, his looks different too. His is different from all the others I've seen too. Is it catching? Look at that. Yeah, it is. Do you think there's anything that you could do that would make it go even farther? Yeah. Well, this one's interesting. Let's see. Go. You put it in there. How is it going to go? Before you even start, I have a question for you. Everybody else who brought theirs back here, put it up here on the top. How come you made yours go forward?
So the air could go in there.
So you made it angle forward so that it would catch the air in that way? Interesting. Is it catching the air the way you thought it would?
As you saw, some of the children's ideas worked, and some did not, at least the first time. We've talked about problem solving and seeing learning as interconnected. The sales video, like the maglev and the pollinators video, points out another practice of engineering. It's okay to fail. Real engineers know and embrace this idea. Failure helps you learn what works. Engineers learn from failure to revise and improve designs. This requires perseverance and improving through multiple iterations. As you saw, when the children's first design for a maglev or train or sail failed, they recognized what they needed to do to improve it. In most engineering design processes, there is an improve or iterate step built in. So youth know right from the beginning that they get to try and try again, that engineering involves multiple iterations. When an initial design fails, that failure actually helps youth learn more as they improve their subsequent design. They learn that persistence pays off. As you can see from these quotes, children also embrace the opportunity to hone their thinking and work on new solutions. One child said, "It was fun to mess up and try again." A second, "Now I know how engineers feel when things they design don't work the first time, but I still want to be one." And the third said, "What I especially liked was when we got to improve our ideas to make our system better." Instead of worrying about being wrong or looking stupid, students come to focus on learning from their failed attempts. A student doesn't fail, a particular design fails. And when it does, the failure sparks a set of new, improved ideas. The last practice I'll highlight today is identifying as an engineer. Engaging in engineering design challenges can help children to understand what engineering is and to see their potential as engineers and problem solvers. We see a wonderful example of children self-identifying as engineers in a second grade class. This would have about 7-year-old children in it. Before this lesson, they learned about a problem. They need to design a wall to keep rabbits out of the school vegetable garden. They've also conducted a set of controlled experiments to evaluate what materials make the best mortar for a stone wall. Next, they are going to design and build their own walls and test the strength of the walls. But before they do, their teacher, Chantal, poses an important question.
At this point, do you guys feel like materials engineers?
Yes.
Why? Anybody?
Yes. But because we already did like 3 of the engineering design process.
Okay.
And we asked the questions and we answered what are solutions.
Okay. Anybody else? Do you feel like a materials engineer and why? What makes you feel that way? Yes, Marcus.
Because since I've been here all 3 days on our material engineering process, I feel engaged and interested in what's probably going to happen left, just as a material engineer would, and I think I'm really ready.
You are? Okay, wonderful. I think you guys are all ready too.
To grow up to be engineers, students must be able to imagine themselves as engineers. Engaging in engineering challenges and calling the work that they do engineering helps children to see themselves in this way. Today, with the help of these talented teachers and their pupils, I hope I have helped you to see that young children can engineer, and when they do, children develop valuable engineering practices. I'd like to share briefly some of the research findings I've done related to engineering. In the process of developing the engineering curricula, my team and I collected hundreds of thousands of surveys and conducted thousands of hours of classroom observations. I've been interested in measuring how engineering affects children's learning, motivation, and attitudes. Here's one key finding. Children learn both engineering and science better when classroom materials are designed to be equitable. If you compare groups of children who used materials based in equity principles to groups of control students who studied the related science topics but didn't engage in engineering activities, you'll find the students with the equity-oriented materials perform significantly better, not just when answering questions about engineering and technology, but also on questions about science. This makes sense. When children apply science concepts, they learn better. Our studies also show that students are learning about engineering. Here we see one student's response to a survey about how his knowledge has grown. Last summer, I thought engineers only made electronics. Now I think engineers design stuff to solve a problem. That's the kind of change we hope to create through engineering. Students' understandings of engineering practices also grow as they engage in engineering work, as we see in this student's response to what an electrical engineer does for his or her work. He or she perseveres and works hard, sometimes gets mad at teammates, but always comes back around. Here's an example of a child who has clearly internalized how important the practices of creativity and brainstorming are to engineers. She created the new category million to describe engineers' use of creativity. Brainstorming ranks even higher with the category Google Truple. Research also shows that children who use curricula with equity-oriented principles are more likely than a control group to indicate that they are interested in engineering as a career. As a corollary, they are more likely to develop a positive attitude towards STEM careers. Today, we've seen that children can engineer. As youth engage with relevant, interesting engineering activities and challenges that are integrated with science and other subjects, we hope to nurture their innovation, creativity, and persistence, and engage them in engineering practices that will help them become the problem solvers of the future. I am traveling at the time you are viewing this, and thus not able to join you for questions. I am sharing my contact information here. Please feel free to reach out if you have any questions. I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference, and I thank you for the opportunity to share my work.